Hey, what is up guys? Kolst here. So amidst all the talk of watch posts and everything going on in the Hearthstone world, I wanted to make this video just talking about some of the most oppressive cards in Hearthstone Arena right now. So one thing that, this is a metric that I think isn't actually talked about too much in Arena and Hearthstone in general, and it really should be, but the way I define oppressiveness for this list is basically early game cards. I'm having a hard cutoff at 5 mana for this list, so this list doesn't just become a list of the strongest cards, expendable performers, Ysera, Silas, these kinds of things. But cards that have an unbelievably strong impact, particularly when played early in the game. So a 1, 2, 3 mana card that has a seriously significant impact on winning the game. These cards are particularly problematic from a design standpoint because essentially they decide outcomes of games before your opponent really has even had an ability to play, which makes it just an awful gameplay experience. Generally speaking, we have a slightly larger allowance for more powerful cards if they're higher costed, because at least, part of the game is staying alive long enough to actually get to play that Ysera or whatever. But these cards, you always get to play on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, or so forth, so you kind of take that away. So with that, I wanted to lead off with a couple cards that were not quite oppressive enough to make this list. The first one being the only neutral really close to being on this list except for Mor'shan Watch Post, which was Imprisoned Vile Fiend, the Shaman Weapon Whack-A-Null Hammer, and the Priest Dormant Minion, Imprisoned Homunculus. And now with that, let's get right into the top 10. And number 10, we have the Warrior Minion, which gives you a weapon, which is Sword Eater. This card has a opening hand win rate of 65.3%. So Sword Eater is just one of those cards which just gives you way too much. A 4 mana 2/5 taunt. That's like a 2/5 taunt's like a 3 mana card, and then it just gives you a 3/2 sword, which again is like a 3 mana card. As with many cards on this list, it just gives you way too much, and particularly in the early game, it's a quite oppressive force. Moving on to number 9, we have the Paladin spell First Day of School. With the core set rotation, this card got even better than it used to be. This is a 0 mana spell, which triggers Spell Burst, which is relevant, and it adds 2 1-cost minions to hand. And the reason why this is so good is because it just fills in your curve perfectly. A lot of 1-cost minions, this includes all class 1-cost minions, and a lot of them just, give you another card or overstated or do something really powerful. So it's just a card that, again, gives you way too much and really gives an advantage in the early game. This card's win rate in the opening hand was about 65.2%, lower than Sword Eater, but keep in mind, Warrior is better than Paladin right now. And another Paladin card that also has exactly a 65.2% opening hand win rate is Kario Rome. 4 mana 4/3 Rush Divine Shield. Again, just an example of a card which, just for its stats, that's already frankly too much, a little bit too much. And then also has the upside of whenever this attacks, reduce the cost of holy spells in your hand by 1. And this is in Paladin, so a lot of Paladin spells are holy. And again, honestly, even without this effect, it's really good, but there's a potential that this thing can survive and trigger that effect multiple times, and then it just becomes really unfair really fast. Moving on to number 7 on the list, we have the Mage Imprisoned Minion, Imprisoned Observer. A 3 mana 4/5 Dormant. When this awakens, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. The entire idea of Dormant is you get too much for the Dormant minion, but this is an example where, especially for Arena, with how important board is and playing multiple minions often, it just does an insane amount and frankly way too much. This was, I think, before Mor'shan Watch Post was printed, the card I spent the most time complaining about out of any card that's ever been printed. They did actually respond and give this card like a 90% offering penalty, I think, but they since, with patch 20.0, removed that penalty. So this, along with a lot of the broken Demon Hunter cards, all of a sudden are showing up as off as normal cards, so we're getting to see this a lot more than before. But now, frankly, we can't even complain about as much because there are even more broken cards that have been, and oppressive cards that have been printed, such as number 6 on the list, the only neutral, Mor'shan Watch Post. Of course, a card that I don't think I'm going to spend too much time on right now because I've already spent an entire video talking about this card. Its opening hand win rate in the neutral across all classes is 67.3%. Imprisoned Observer was 67% in Mage. So yeah, just a card where I think a thing people, which I didn't mention in my watch post video, which people I think sometimes don't understand, if this card was a 3/5 with no text, it would be significantly weaker, particularly on curve. The fact that this minion can't attack is completely negated by its effect. So I actually saw a post on Reddit where a guy was talking about using Iron Beak Owl as a counter to this card, making it able to attack, but at least then it can't win the game with its effects, which, I mean, kind of just shows, you know, just how strong this card is. Now moving on to the top 5 on this list. At number 5, probably the most surprising card on this list is Outrider's Axe. This is the new warrior weapon, 4 mana 3/3. After hero attacks and kills a minion, draw a card. This card actually had a 67.9% opening hand win rate. I think the reason this card is so oppressive is, again, it's just an example of getting way too much for a single card. And especially when you play it early, you basically always get the effect off. You haven't lost enough health to even have to consider that. The minions aren't big enough that you have to think about whether you can put your face into them. And then getting that much card draw that early just makes your other turns better. So I guess it's not exactly winning the game by itself, but it's winning the game through, you know, you having more options so that you can make the best turns and then therefore win the game. And also a 4 mana 3/3 weapon is already not bad. So yeah, just another example, just way too much for one card. Moving on to number 4 on the list, at a 68.3% win rate. I think I pulled the mage win rate of this one. This is Jandis Barov, card which I think is very likely to get nerfed. It's another example, like First Day of School, of a card that got significantly buffed by the core set rotation. A lot of bad 5-drops left, and now there's just so many 5-cost minions that have rush or card generation or something, or taunt. This card just gives you way too much for 5 mana. There's a very good chance this card will be nerfed again, so we'll see if where this card will land depending on what they do with that. I want to say there's a significant drop off actually even between this part of the list and the next 3 cards on the list. So at 69.1% is the Warlock spell Shadow Council. Card I haven't really seen too much, but this is a card where essentially it just replaces your hand, doesn't matter where your hand is, and then you just get random demons. Before, I think this card might have actually gotten weaker recently, because this card might have been even number 2 on this list before, but still, I mean, it just gives you way too much stats. You want to do it. I think a thing that some people misplay with this card is that they think you want to, like, and then I think early a lot of people thought this was that you would want to transform more of your hand, but really you just want to get this advantage as soon as possible. The power of this card is getting like 1, 2, 3 cost demons and getting to throw them on the board while they're super overstated. Past a certain point, that benefit doesn't provide as much value, and then you might even be, you know, overriding cards that are even more powerful than an overstated demon. So you just really want to get as many stats on the board as soon as possible with this card. But yeah, incredibly oppressive card when your opponent has it early. Moving on to number 2 on the list, another Warlock card, this time a minion, the Dormant minion, Imprisoned Scrap Imp. Card which was nerfed actually because it was so oppressive in Constructed that Constructed players were seriously complaining about it. It used to give +2/+2 initially, now it's just a Dormant 3/3 for 2 mana, which awakens and gives a hand buff to all mains in your hand of +2/+1 now. Even after the nerf, still an incredibly strong and obviously on this list the second most oppressive card in all of Arena right now. And moving on to number 1 on the list, a card with a shockingly high opening hand win rate of 74.2%. It is none other than the Warrior Imprisoned minion, Imprisoned Gnarg, a 1 mana 2/2 which equips a 3/2 axe after 2 turns of being dormant. So this is an example of a card where, I mean, I just want to point out how shockingly high 74.2% opening hand win rate is. That means if you play this card on turn 1, you're almost 50% more likely to win the game just because of this one card, this one mana card. Just the sheer power level of it being played on turn 1 just makes it, and the sheer win rate of it being in the opening hand makes it by far the clear #1 most oppressive card on this list. This card essentially gives you such a strong advantage that you can honestly skip turn 2 and turn 3 after playing it, and then you'll have given up your advantage to an extent, but you'll still be, you know, totally fine. Just way too much for a 1 mana card. But anyway, that's the list. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. If you made it this far, what cards are you surprised to see or not see on this list? Make sure to let me know in the comment section below. And of course, let me know what you think of these types of cards. Do you think these types of cards should all be banned? Because honestly, this would be kind of a pretty good proxy of a list of cards that should be banned from Arena. But are you okay with these cards existing? Would you rather they just be gone? What do you think? Make sure to let us know in the comment section below. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see the list of the most powerful cards, I should be able to put a card up there to be able to check that out as well. But thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. We'll see you guys next time.